Okay, I think we're live. Hello, good morning. I'm Lucy Shrimpton, the sleep nanny, and I'm here this morning to help answer your questions on your sleep challenges with little ones and how we can get them sleeping soundly through the night. So for those of you who perhaps aren't familiar with me or my work, I work as an infant sleep consultant helping families with little ones from birth right through to 5 or 6 years. I have all kinds of gentle philosophies and methods and approaches to help you find something that's suitable for you, that works with your parenting style, your child's temperament, to enable you all to have a more restful and happy experience of parenthood. So I'm here, and I'm here to answer any questions that you need help with right now. So please do type them in the chat box, which you should see, so I can see those. And I know we've had a few through social media as well, so I'm going to be addressing some of those as well. So I'm going to kick off with a question I've had this morning about early rising, and this one is a pickle. Early rising affects a lot of babies and young children. And the main cause usually for early rising, it tends to be around overtiredness. So if there's overtiredness creeping in somewhere, you're likely to see early rising as well. That overtiredness could occur through poor napping, not taking enough naps, not taking naps at the optimum time of day for them, possibly going to bed too late and already being overtired, or maybe those things are all in check, but the sleep in the nighttime is just really disturbed, so they're not getting enough rest through the night. It can sometimes be difficult to spot where the overtiredness is creeping in. And there are examples I've seen where it seems like all the boxes are checked, child's napping well, going to bed well, everything looks good. Why do they still early rise? And my person this morning that's asked me about this has actually been tackling this one for a while, and she's saying that she's now getting to a point where she's just seeing this coming in waves. So the early rising disappears, then it creeps back in, and it's in a bit of a wave at the moment. So it's kind of like taking this question to another level, which I like because I love a challenge. So my answer there is, in this situation, the little one is nearly 2, and he's going to bed about 7, napping for 2 hours in the day, which is great. And the average 2-year-old will take a good 2 hours nap in the day, or at least will do well on a good 2 hours in the day. So those things are all in check, and this is a little one who can settle himself to sleep really well, get himself back to sleep if he wakes, so I know that he's got all those skills, and yet this early rising's still creeping in. So my advice on this one is to look at that nap and where it is in the day. If he's having too much sleep and it's too late in the day, then there is every chance that he's actually getting almost a bit too much sleep, settling well at bedtime, sleeping through, and then come 5 a.m. he's actually just had enough. A good sign if they've had enough sleep is when they wake up happy. They're all really cheerful, and you can just tell they're done and there's just no more sleep left in there. A telltale sign that tells you that a child hasn't had enough sleep is when they wake up and they're grumpy and they're miserable, and actually they're not done. They do still need to go to sleep, but for some reason they're just finding it a bit of a challenge to get back to sleep at that moment. So when you see a little one waking up grumpy and unable to get back to sleep, my first point of call would be to check that they have all the skills to get back to sleep, because there may be some work needed there. The child I'm thinking of, I know, has got those skills, but for those of you who might be thinking, this sounds familiar, then what I would say to you is, if it is 4 or 5 a.m. and there's a real struggle to get back to sleep then, but your child can get to sleep at bedtime and can get back to sleep with earlier night wakings, why can't they do it at that time? And let me tell you, it's because it's really tricky. The closer to morning you get, the harder it gets for them to get back to sleep. They've had quite a bit of sleep, they've taken the edge off it, and it just becomes much more of a challenge. So the things I would do then would be to make absolute sure that at bedtime that your child is settling themselves. So, not going in too sleepy or already asleep, not putting them down so drowsy that even if their eyes are wide open, they just drift straight off and, within a few minutes. So make sure they're definitely putting themselves to sleep quite confidently and competently at bedtime. Check on the naps and how much sleep they should be getting for their age. Make sure that you're getting a very consistent bedtime. So, especially at this time of year, we've got Christmas around the corner. There's lots of events happening and exciting things going on, and it's easy to let the odd late night creep in here and there. So just get your routine in check. Make sure that you're absolutely rigid with bedtime, when nap time is, that enough sleep is happening, and then I would work on that early waking as something that you work through. So don't just go, oh well, it's 5 a.m. we're up for the day. That's not good. And then if they get in the habit of getting up at that time of day, they'll want to carry on waking up at that time of day. So make sure you ride it out till at least 6, whether that's you staying in the room with them, a little bit of shushing and very very quietly just sitting there and waiting it out, or whether that means you go back to bed and or frequently have to put them back to bed, toddlers that maybe come in wandering. Whatever it is you decide you need to do, just see it through to 6 so that your child is getting into that rhythm of not waking before 6. So hopefully that will help some of you who are unsure about why the early rising is happening. And for the lady I had the question from, I know she's going to be thinking, yeah, this one does know how to settle himself. He can get himself back to sleep, and he's just having these waves and what's going on. And I think in this situation, it would be worth bringing that nap a little earlier in the day, because it's currently from 1 till 3, which means he's starting this is a vicious cycle thing here. Okay, so let me explain this. He's starting his day sometimes a little bit earlier than he should, maybe let's say 5 a.m. So he's then got a long stretch from 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. when he takes his nap. That's a big stretch for his age. He's not 2 yet. Then he takes a good nap from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Lovely, great nap. That's what we want to see. And he's good at napping. So well done, brilliant. But when he wakes at 3, he only has a smaller window then till he's down for bed at 7. He settles well at 7 because he's a good sleeper, he's a good settler. But come 5 a.m, he's possibly then done, because in that sort of second half of your 24-hour window, he's getting quite a lot of sleep. So would I cut that nap shorter? Not yet. What I would advise first would be to bring it forward. So I would maybe try and get it to 12:30. See how that works. At this age, 12:30 is prime, a really good nap time for a little one of this kind of schedule and this kind of structure in this age. So I would try and get him down for 12:30, see if you can get him up then by 2:30. So he's still taking the amount of sleep that he ought to have, and it gives him a bit of a longer window between the nap and bedtime. See how that works. It may be that short term, he's ready for a nap by midday, because he's starting his day so early. And if he starts his day really early, I would try that, maybe an early lunch, slightly earlier on the nap, about midday, awake then 2 hours later, and then the second half of the day is a more sensible length for his age. And I would try that for a good week. Anything you try, I would always say try for at least a week to see how it goes and see what effect it takes, because it doesn't just happen overnight. It needs a bit of time to set in, and see if that helps push those mornings back out to at least 6 a.m. or later. I know this little one is likely to reduce his nap length maybe before other children would, but I also think he's likely to hold on to some sort of nap longer than the average child, just knowing the temperament of this child. Super alert temperaments do tend to nap for longer than the average easygoing little ones. They do also often not early rise, but wake on the early side post 6 a.m, but maybe not quite making it to the 7, and you might always have a 6 a.m. riser on your hands. Those types of temperaments, they do often hold on to a bit of a nap longer than the average child. So I'd be really careful about thinking that he needs less sleep in the day or cutting that nap short. It's tempting, and a lot of parents would intuitively do that. But I'm saying that that could trip you up and actually end up working against you. So a great tip for this particular person in question and anybody else who thinks this sounds familiar, be very cautious about reducing sleep in the day in hope that you're going to get it at night. It doesn't usually work that way. A really good time to consider doing that would be if your child is taking a long time, or sorry, suddenly out of the blue, taking a long time to settle at bedtime when they were previously able to settle nicely within about 15 minutes. So if you know you've got a self-settler that can put themselves to sleep by themselves within about 15 minutes, and I'm talking at probably a close to 3-year-old, and then suddenly they start taking a lot longer to get to sleep at bedtime, that may be sort of chatting, playing, singing, or even getting up and being mischievous, and it's taking longer, that's when you could consider that, are they having too much sleep in the day, or again, is it too much too late in the day? So there's loads of stuff to think about there, and I know that I'm literally bombarding you with loads of information, but I'm hoping that I'm talking to lots of people and I'm trying to cover different scenarios here that hopefully will ring true for some of you. If you have any other questions on that subject right now, please do feel free to type them in the chat box, because I can see those, and I can answer maybe something that's a bit more specific to you. So please do type in if you have something you want to ask on that topic or on any other topic for that matter. So I'm here to answer any questions you've got this morning. So let's have a look and see what else we've got to talk about this morning. So how to handle sleep during the Christmas holidays? That's a good one, and very topical, very seasonal. Over the Christmas break, you often have visitors, or you may be going visiting. You may be traveling overseas. It's a time of year when normal routine is usually a little off track, you know? So you can expect that things might be a bit disrupted with sleep. How you can, first of all, keep a good situation good is to try and keep things as rhythmic as you can. So if you have a late night, or you know that there's a week where you're going to have a disrupted day or a disrupted night, then just try and take that into account and make sure that the few days before and the few days after are very much the norm, so that there's some padding around it, if that makes sense. So try to keep things as routine as you can, and if you know something's going to throw you off routine, then keep things routine around that time. If you're traveling, then I definitely recommend you look at my travel tips, which I have a blog on, and I also have a travel audio program, which covers every type of travel. That's road trips, foreign travel, time zones, you name it, it's covered. But a couple of real key points with travel is, first of all, try and take some familiarities from home. So any cuddlies, any nightlight clocks, little things around bedtime, even for babies, a sheet from their cot that just smells like home, anything that gives them that familiarity. Try and set the scene in the new location, very similar to home. So if they, like I said, if they have a particular clock or nightlight, that can help. And if they're used to being in their own room and then they've got to share with you because you're in a smaller accommodation whilst you're traveling, try and create a bit of a separation, a bit of a closed off area to give them that little bit of barrier between you and the child, because if they can see you, that suddenly might be really stimulating and exciting, something they're not used to. And again, just try to keep your routine going. So even if you are staying in with family, maybe that's easier. If you're with family, you can probably recreate the rhythm of home. If you're in a hotel or similar accommodation, then just trying to do a bit of a bath time or bedtime routine like you would, if you normally would sit them on your knee on a chair whilst you do the last steps before going into bed. Just try to make that as familiar and similar as you can. That's one of my tips with traveling. So the general disruptions of Christmas, visitors, guests coming, I'm just imagining, young babies that are trying to get into a nap routine, but they're just struggling because the house is so much noisier. Maybe there's older siblings around who are normally at school, and just people coming and going, which is lovely, but it can make it a lot more difficult for your child to sleep in the day. So again, just try to keep things as close to the norm as you can. Perhaps try and schedule visits when it's not prime nap time. Older siblings, perhaps you could do some activities with the children, and then when it's youngest one's nap time, then maybe older ones that might normally be at school, you could then give them something quiet to do, even if that is a nice Christmas movie or a quiet activity that will keep them slightly on the chilled level whilst the baby takes a sleep. So a bit of forward thinking and planning like that. And if all fails and you end up with a very upset, overtired baby who's just not had a sleep and is just miserable, then a little trip out in the car or a nice long walk in the pram or pushchair, and let the motion catch them up on some sleep, because you don't want ongoing overtiredness building up and all the repercussions of that. So a bit of forward thinking with that, and just awareness generally. Being aware is already going to stand you in good stead. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else on Christmas season and tips that I can give you. Christmas Day, obviously, if you have a child anything over 2.5, 3, then they're going to be pretty into the idea of Christmas and likely to get up a bit earlier. Actually, somebody asked me, I think it was yesterday, about this and said, "Oh, are your children well trained? Will they not be up till 7 on Christmas Day?" And I said, you know what, they are well trained, and normally I don't hear a peep till 7, but they're 3 and 5. I think I'll let them off just that once on Christmas morning. It's different, isn't it? Let's face it. Going to be excited, so you can bend the rules a bit when it's Christmas. I think that's acceptable, but just be aware, that they will be a bit more tired. Maybe a child that doesn't nap in the day anymore might need one, or they might need an early night Christmas night after a busy or early start to the day. Might need a restful Boxing Day. So just be aware that with an action there may be a consequence, and that you might have to do a little bit of making up for it. So yes, exciting. As you can tell, I'm feeling festive. So any other questions at the moment? We've covered some early rising in depth. We've talked about Christmas, travel. Let's see if we have anything else at the moment. I'm just checking the chat. No, it's nothing there that I haven't covered. So please do feel free to type in the chat if you're listening and you've got a burning question. Why not? Ask me right now. I will tell you whatever I can tell you to help you. Of course, there is my book, which I know a lot of you have got already, which is fantastic. Thank you for helping make it a bestseller. But it's available right now on Amazon, and it's a great Christmas gift for anyone you know that might be struggling with a lack of sleep. I mean, the gift of sleep. What could be better? So a lovely present for yourself or anyone you know who maybe hasn't got a copy yet but would like one for Christmas. You want to spread the gift of sleep and well-rested families. So have we got any other questions? I'm not sure we have right now. I know there's a few of you still on there, so please do fire away. There is a chat box and you can ask me anything you like. Well, while we're waiting to see if anyone else is going to type in any question, I will give you a few more common bits of advice, things that crop up quite a lot, and what to do. So I've recently been working with a toddler who was constantly waking in the night, and I know that's a really common scenario. And once they're into a bed or a toddler bed, then they have that freedom as well of getting up, which can be tricky because until they're 2.5, they don't really have the cognitive ability to understand staying in bed. Now, this little one wasn't getting up. He hadn't got to that point yet. He'd only been in a bed for about a week, and the mother and I considered whether or not he should go back to a cot in the short term. And we decided, no, do you know what, we'll persevere with the bed, because if we can get him trained well now, then hopefully that won't even happen and he won't get out. He would just, he would just call out. So we got to work on getting him to sleep soundly all night long in his bed. And, after what, I think about a week, we reached that goal, and it's so rewarding and so lovely to see lives transformed like that. So to give you an idea on how we did that, because you might be thinking, yes, that's me, or maybe that's something you might need to know in the future. We basically set the scene with his room, made sure he was happy, and because he didn't like being alone, the parents had tried staying with him, leaving him, and nothing seemed to work. So what we did was we set about a new plan where the parents would stay with him, or one of the parents at a time would stay with him whilst he settled to sleep, but they weren't doing too much. So rather than doing it for him, they would allow him to settle himself, but just with the company of knowing that somebody was there. And then over a course of nights, we reduced all of their presence, really. So they were present. They would maybe do a little shushing or a little lie down whisper, or just so that they know, but no real interaction, no stimulation. And little one was just comforted knowing they were there. That was okay. Any sort of, this one didn't, but I know that children do. So sort of any prodding, or I had a client recently where the little one would literally put on a show and just really go for it to try and get the attention of the parents. Just kind of ignore that. Just stay very chill, very calm, and just like little shushing, let them know you're still there, but you're not there to have a bull. And they soon back down. Toddlers will try anything to delay going to sleep, but they do eventually. You just have to be more strong-willed than they are, which I know can be tough because they have pretty strong will. So with this one, the parents we worked the way to the point where they were sat sort of across the room, not really very involved, and just hanging in there whilst the little one put himself to sleep. And Mum said to me towards the end, I'm really nervous about the next stage of actually being able to put him down and then leave the room, because I think he's going to just follow me, and he's just going to, because, he's getting more confident, and he'll just follow me and want to see where I'm going and won't accept this. But he did accept it, because we took it so gradually and so gently that by the time Mum got to the point of saying night night and leaving the room, he was already really well adjusted and well accustomed to putting himself to sleep and lying down and just accepting that it's okay. There's people nearby. I'm not alone. It's okay. And it was just remarkable. So please do know that if you're in a position where you have a little one that either gets up a lot in the night or maybe just calls out a lot to you in the night, there is hope, and it can be achieved pretty quickly. This little one is now sleeping soundly all night long, and I know that the mum in particular just is almost drunk on sleep because she's getting so much rest now, which is just lovely. So yeah, it's definitely worth persevering, and you can absolutely do that. So yeah, any questions on that, or how maybe for your child, then do type in a question or let me know, because I'm more than happy to guide you a bit more in depth on that one. I have got a question here. It says, oh, okay, it's about self-soothing. So let me have a look. There is a question here. I'm just trying to find it. 1 second. Yeah, okay, so it's not coming up in my Oh, don't press that. That's not right. Okay. Let's just check here. No. Okay. It's not coming up in my chat. I've been alerted to it by my team who are listening. So yeah, it's not coming up in my chat at all. But I have got a note here, and it's about self-soothing. That's all I know. Question about something about self-soothing. So let me give you a bit of information on that, and perhaps maybe I've got my email open, so maybe you could forward that to me or something. Anyway, I'll talk a bit about self-soothing anyway. So the ability to self-soothe is pretty much a cornerstone to having a child that can sleep soundly and sleep all night long. You can't really trick them into it. So if you're putting your little one down asleep, or doing it for them, as I call it, so that could be patting them to sleep, or stroking them to sleep for a baby, rocking them to sleep, or even older children, holding their hand until they're asleep, or even I know that in fact I can show you it. There's this lovely book on the market, which is a book about the rabbit who wants to fall asleep, and I know that gets a lot of media coverage. Even that, you're doing it for them. They're not really putting themselves to sleep. To be honest, this book is so long that no child under the age of 6 is really going to be able to listen to that whole thing without falling asleep anyway. So whether that you just send them to sleep through reading, which is no different to sitting there and singing them to sleep. So until that stops, they're going to rely on that help to get to sleep. And if your little one relies on help to get to sleep at bedtime, which is when they're going to do the most learning around settling, then they're going to rely on that same help to get back to sleep anytime they wake in the night. So when you get these call outs, and this same goes for any age, 0 to 6, if you get call outs, wake ups, visits, or crying in the night, they're basically awake going, I don't know how to do this. I can't get back to sleep. I don't know how to put myself to sleep. You did it for me at bedtime, so come and help me again now. And they'll be looking for either the same thing or something, or an alternative way of you getting them back to sleep. So working on the self-soothing is, it's absolutely key to having a child that can sleep soundly all night. When and how you work on that is varies massively. So what you would do with a 6-month-old might be different, or would be different to what you would do with a 2-year-old, and likewise a 4 or 5-year-old. So there isn't just a one magic answer, and also it would depend on temperament. So if you have a very alert child who perhaps would be way too stimulated by you being in the room, even like the situation I talked about earlier with the little one who we helped him settle himself with the mum in the room, maybe just sat a little bit across from him, just being there for him, and maybe just shushing a little bit just to reassure him that she was nearby, but not actually doing it for him. That's one great way. But there are some children who that wouldn't work for, because just being in the room would be stimulating to them, and they would just be constantly looking at you and wondering what you're doing, or trying to play with you, and just not being able to settle with you there. There are children who are too alert for that. So in those situations, we do have to leave the room. That doesn't mean you can't go back in and respond to cries and soothe and reassure. I'm all for reassuring, and I would never suggest that you teach a child to self-soothe by ignoring them or not responding to them at all. It's a common misconception, but that sort of approach, which is technically is cry it out, not control crying, they're very different, but that kind of approach quite often results in little ones just falling asleep because it's like no one's going to come anyway, or just passing out asleep. And that's what a lot of parents are in fear of with sleep training. And they think, does teaching my child to self-soothe mean that they're going to just learn that nobody comes? Or are they going to just learn that to just cry themselves to sleep, or just be upset until they fall asleep? And that's not a nice idea for anybody. And that is not what teaching a child to self-soothe looks like or has to look like, or certainly not what I would advise that it looks like. So we want them to learn to self-soothe, but to also feel very secure, very safe, and maintain that attachment with you, the caregiver, the parent, you know, so that they don't feel in any way ignored, abandoned, or not responded to. So it's just about how we respond, making sure that it's super consistent. So they're always going to be met with the same response every time. That gives them clarity so that they understand what to expect. So, you know, if 5 wakings in the night, they get you know, a little pat and they're off to sleep, but then there's another 1 or 2 where they get a pick up on a rocking, or eventually they get brought into mum and dad's bed at 4 or 5, then that child's learning that I can come into mum and dad's bed, so I'll just hold out for that, thanks. and so they'll then hold out for that at these different wakings, which makes those opportunities to resettle take a lot longer, because it's intermittent reinforcement. You're reinforcing to your child that sometimes maybe you can come into my bed. And sometimes doesn't work. You know, it's like your little one's crying is actually going, well, how come you let me before? Why can't I now? Which is a valid question. Of course, only communicated through crying. But that's why consistency is absolutely key. So decide what your response is going to be and stick to it. Once you've made that decision, it doesn't take so long. You know, it's really all about commitment to a plan and being consistent with following it through. And then it really doesn't need to take too long. It doesn't need to be too traumatic. Sure, there'll be a little bit of crying. Any change is met with a bit of resistance, but so long as you're there to comfort and soothe, then that's all we do as parents, don't we, when our children are upset, which is going to happen with all kinds of aspects of parenting. So yes, I think in summary, let me just check if I've had any more information on that one. Yeah, okay, so I think that lady was asking, how can I get my son to self-soothe without nursing or letting him cry? So hopefully I've answered that to some extent. Without letting him cry, he's gonna probably, I don't know the age or temperament or any background on this, but he's likely to cry a little bit when you implement a plan. But how you do it is by deciding on a plan. So how's bedtime going to work? How are you going to respond to him when he wakes in the night, and see that through till at least 6 a.m. So anything pre 6 a.m. is a night waking. So decide on all of those things first, what you're going to do, and then do it absolutely consistently. Yes, he might cry a little bit, but so long as you are reassuring and comforting and responding, then you aren't harming your child in any way. You're leaving, you know, you're giving him all those messages of love and support. He's just a bit frustrated, and that cry is him going, I don't know how to do this. Do it for me. You used to do it for me, because rocking him was doing it for him. Feeding him was doing it for him. Now he's going to learn to do it himself. It's going to be a little bit frustrating for him. But so long as you're there giving you love and comfort and support, he's going to be okay. Soothing, you know, with shushes, pats, cuddles, even if you need to. You know, you can pick baby up, calm them, put them back down awake, and start again. And yes, it can be tiring and mentally draining, and you can also get to a point where you think, how is this working? You know, I put my child back down awake, they're just annoyed again, and how does it actually work? But I promise you, the practice does create learning, which does create results. So persevere, even when you think it's not doing anything, it probably is. So that's the crying hopefully covered, and get to something that. Yeah, so without nursing to sleep, then with that one I would suggest that you make sure he's well fed, make sure that his calorie intake is appropriate, that he's gaining weight properly, following his curve nicely, so you've got no concerns that he's hungry. And once you can establish when he's hungry and when it's just soothing that he needs, that's when it becomes a lot easier. So, you know, try and get a good feed in before bedtime without falling asleep on it. And then you'll need to judge, depending on what age child we're talking about here, and health and all those other factors. There's so many variables, but once you know how much he needs in the night, or not at all, then you make that decision. So you might decide, okay, there'll be one feed at about 11 p.m. and then I know he's going to be fine till morning, sorry. And at that point, you can then use other soothing techniques through the rest of the night. I say if you need 2 feeds in the night, really 2 feeds in the night, you're talking about probably little ones under the age of 4 months, maybe some 4-month-olds, and extenuating circumstances like an underweight baby or baby who doesn't feed well in the day, really bad reflux, not holding enough down. There are exceptions as to when you may still need 2 feeds in the night, but generally speaking, once you're in the 4-5 months and onwards, 1 feed to none is where you're headed. And don't be fooled by a little one who can drain a bottle or take a really good breastfeed in the nighttime, even when they're not hungry. So don't be fooled. Don't think, well, they have a lot, so they must need it. Not necessarily. They can take a lot even when they don't need it. They have the capacity. You or I could drink a full glass of milk at 3 a.m. There'd be room, even if we didn't want it. So they can put it away even when they don't need it. So just try and, I would never say don't feed your baby when your baby's hungry, because absolutely feeding is way more important than sleeping. But it's just working out when it's hunger and when it's comfort that's really needed. So yeah, in answer to that question, to avoid nursing to sleep, don't nurse to sleep. Nurse when you need to nurse, absolutely. If it's very difficult and you're finding, because you know you're going to be thinking that's easier said than done, at bedtime when your little one is there nursing just before bed and nodding off, and you think, I just can't keep them awake, then I would suggest bringing that nursing forward earlier, so that it's not right on top of bedtime. It might be something you split, so you do a bit of a feed, maybe some of your bath or bedtime routine, and then a little bit more, so it's not so much in one go, which gives them more time to get drowsy and sleepy. And also introduce a step after the feed. So rather than feed cot, it goes feed and sit up whilst winding maybe a little, look at a book, which for a baby might just be one of those fuzzy, feely books that they can point at and possibly chew on. But it's the very early stages of a bedtime story. So I would suggest that. So you have a step after the feed and before going into bed, just to disassociate the feeding to sleep. So hopefully that helps answer that one. So I'm going to have a look at some other questions. What have we got here? Going on. Okay. Wow. Now they're coming in thick and fast. Done that one. Fireworks question. I'm guessing that is, my chat's just nothing's coming up in my chat at all. Sorry, 1 second. Let me just see if I can do anything with that. No, it's not there. And no. Let's just see if there's anything in here. No. Okay. No, I'm just gonna have to go with the messages on here. So what tips do you have for New Year's and fireworks? So yeah, I guess same goes for November and general firework situations. Little ones do get disturbed by fireworks. Naturally, it can be disruptive. My best tips are really if you can get them down before that kind of noise. I'm talking about here, this is if fireworks around you or around the home. So this is a situation where, say you're at home, you're doing everything as normal, but lots of people around you have got fireworks going on. So in that scenario, I would try and get them to sleep if you can before it gets too noisy, because if they get into a deep sleep, then 10 to 20 minutes into that sleep, they're going to be so sleepy that not a lot will disturb them. If they're trying to settle to sleep and it's really noisy, then that's going to be a little bit harder. especially for the sort of preschooler age, once they're a little bit older and more into things that could be scary and asking questions about them, or even using it as an excuse. So once they're a little bit older, they could find that it's something that's sort of hindering them getting to sleep. And it's not like it's a constant noise either. It's sort of random bangs and crashes and just as the settling and the startling noises. So yeah, it is very tricky, that one. I would definitely try to get them to sleep before all the noise. Like I say, once they're asleep, they can sleep through an earthquake. In deep sleep, children sleep very deeply. But if they're trying to get to sleep, yes, more challenging. If it's impossible to get them to sleep before all the noise, and you're in the room and your little one is actually a little bit frightened, then I would actually suggest staying with them whilst they settle, reassuring them. Maybe you could put on some white noise or sort of very gentle, soft music, and just say, look, just for today, just because it's noisy, we're just going to have this little bit of sound on. Never put a screen on. Don't put a TV on in their room, or any kind of tablet or phone or device that has a screen, because the light from screens is super stimulating. It triggers hormones in the brain and it will wake them up. But sound is fine if you can find something that just soft sound, soothing, but drains out a bit of that noise. I don't know how much, it depends on your home and where you are and things, but extra padding the windows, curtains, even things like that, you can maybe damp out some of the noise. But staying with them might be the only thing, and just saying, look, mummy's going to be, or daddy's going to be right here. Just be super quiet, don't interact, and just say, look, I'm right here, it's fine, I'm going to stay here till you're asleep, but you roll over, you close your eyes, and I'll be right here. And those kind of reassuring things. Or your child might be okay with just a little, I'll come and check on you in 10 minutes or something, and just so they know, I'm just downstairs, I'll come and check on you in 10 minutes. And again, more likely to accept that. Babies, of course, won't be able to communicate on that level. So if we're talking about a baby, to believe it or not, they're going to be less likely to be scared by them, because it's just noise to a baby. It's the slightly older ones that apply meaning and potentially fears around those things. So with a baby, I would just they might need a little bit more soothing, a little bit more helping off to sleep. Try and get them to sleep before the noise, and then soothing till they're settled. Once they're settled, you should be fine. In case that question was more about going to fireworks for New Year's with a little one, because it could be, I know some people like to go to these events. I would make sure your child's going to be all right with it, because some aren't. I mean, my two, one's sort of okay with it, and the other one really doesn't like them. So actually, I've just gone, well, it's not exactly that much fun, because it's not enjoyable for you if your child's miserable or scared or doesn't enjoy it. So I would try and make sure it's going to be an enjoyable thing to do. Otherwise, I would avoid it, to be honest. If it's something you desperately want to do and you have a baby and you're going to take a baby with you, keeping them up a bit later maybe and all those things, then I would have them nicely bundled up, very warm and cozy in a pram. And I would even get you can get baby ear defenders, and I would put them on them just to muffle out some of that sound, and a baby should probably sleep through that, to be honest. Might even sleep through it without the ear defenders. Honestly, they can sleep very deeply. But ear defenders for little ones can be great for things like fireworks. We've actually used them at a race car track thing, anything like that where it's extreme noise. So yeah, that can help too. I wouldn't use them in bed at home, but if you're going to an event or something like that. Let me see what other questions I've got here. Okay, so I have a note here. If I put my son in his cot awake, he climbs and stands up and wants to play even if I'm still and silent. Yeah, okay, so climbs and stands. So yeah, we've got a toddler here. Bound to happen. So even if you're still and silent, you're sat there and he's probably going to climb up and almost want to nudge you until he gets a reaction. Stay still and silent. You could just reach over and pat the mattress or through the bars or whatever, pat the mattress or stroke the mattress and just whisper, lie down, saying, say nothing other than just 2 words, lie down, and in a very soft whisper. I wouldn't look so much in his direction or interact. I would almost have him to the side and just go, lie down, and just very neutral. You need to be so dull and boring that he doesn't want to play, you're just being there for him. He will lie down eventually. And if you cave first, or if you have had enough and then you give in any way, whether that's and I'm picturing this, by the way, to be a child who's quite happy, just maybe climbing, standing, just a bit kind of like, what do I do? Play with me, talk to me. So if you give in any way, that's it. They've won. They're going to do it every single time. So you need to be the most resilient. And yes, you can soothe and comfort. And yes, if that child was really upset, then absolutely, lean over and a little cuddle. If I would try the leaning over and a cuddle first. If you needed to pick up, calm, back down, still awake. But just be super patient, super silent. They do eventually lie down. He might lie down and try and go to sleep and then be up again. And it's because he's learning and he's not got it yet. And it's really hard. It's really hard to learn to put yourself to sleep. So be patient. Make sure you're doing the exact same thing every single night. And if you haven't done that for a week of total consistency, then do that first before thinking that it's not working, because it might work. If you're still having trouble after a week of utter consistency, not caved once, always persevered, for as long as it takes for him to go to sleep. That's how long you need to do it for as long as it takes. Then the next thing I would ask it could be that you're a stimulant. It could be that you being there is stimulating him, and actually he'd stand a better chance of settling if you weren't in the room. And if that was the case, I would try moving to being outside of the room, put the door ajar, stay just outside and just offer a little bit of shushing here and there, so that you're just outside. He knows you're nearby, but hasn't got that stimulation of seeing you and expecting something from you. So that's something you can try with that as well. This is a question I get asked on a daily basis, so you're by no means alone on that one, and absolutely something that can be overcome relatively quickly. So if what I've given you there isn't enough, or you try that and you need more, then do get in touch with me, because I can completely help you with that one in a more bespoke way. I think similar to that, somebody said here, now this could have been in relation to the nursing to sleep question, because somebody has said I can only get him to sleep by nursing. So yes, you can only get him to sleep by nursing now, because that's all he knows. So because that's how he gets to sleep, that's how he expects to get to sleep, and that will carry on for as long as that carries on. So you need to draw a line in the sand and go, right, okay, we're not going to nurse to sleep anymore. It's going to be a bit of a pain barrier to push through. It's going to get harder before it gets easier. But once you make that decision that nursing to sleep is not going to be what we do anymore, we're going to nurse, then we're going to help him as best we can to soothe to sleep. By the way, I am talking about this being a baby that's at least 18 weeks or over, possibly closer to 6 months. This is not something I would suggest for a newborn or a very small baby, just to make that clear. Because if you're nursing a newborn to sleep, fine, crack on, it's not a problem. You can undo that later on. If you're nursing to sleep, nursing a small baby to sleep, it's not a problem. It will be a problem later. That's all I'm saying. So it's something you can work on that later. Don't worry about it right now. But assuming this is an older baby or toddler or something, if you're nursing to sleep and you know that it's a problem and it can't carry on, then use some of the steps that I suggested, like introducing a step after the feed to kind of incentivize them, maybe split the feed, whatever it takes to keep them awake. It might mean that bedtime needs to be earlier, so that you don't nurse to sleep and you have a baby that's awake after the feed's done. You can rest assured your little one's fed, not hungry, and then your job then is to soothe them, comfort them, and help them to settle themselves to sleep. And that does take time. So whilst it might be like, no, my child won't settle to sleep unless I nurse them, I'm telling you, they will. You just need to find a way that you can stick to and that you can see through. They won't just do it. It will take some time and it will take some training. And so, yes, if you're feeling like, yeah, right now, that's the only way I can get my child to sleep. Yeah, it will remain that way until you make a break in that. And that is completely achievable. As I said, you just have to be ready. And I would set aside a good 2 or 3 weeks when you have no major disruptive plans, that you can really commit to a routine that works for you, or that you can go, right, okay, this is what we're going to do, and it's going to be tiring. Maybe take it in turns with dad, or any help that you've got around. You can take it in turns for bedtimes. It's a bit like ripping off a band-aid. It's a short-term pain for a long-term gain. It's not going to be easy. But once you help your little one achieve that, then it's going to be so much sunnier on the other side. Okay, so I'm going to look at what other questions we've got here. I've done that one. If my little one wakes up really early, then goes back to sleep until 10 a.m, should I wake her up? Message from Claire. Lovely question. Okay, if my little one wakes up. Okay, yeah, fine. So if your little one wakes up really early, then goes back to sleep till 10, should you wake her up? That depends on a couple of things. So if you're talking about a little one that wakes up really early, I don't know, 5 a.m, then goes back to sleep at 6 a.m, maybe, or during bedtime, doesn't actually get up for the day, just goes back to sleep, I wouldn't imagine they would then sleep till 10 a.m. So in that situation, I would limit it. You've got to start the day at some point. I think this is more likely to mean wakes up really early for the day, so maybe 5, gets up, starts the day, and then takes a very early nap, maybe. I'm thinking that's what it is. So that could be like a 7 a.m. nap, back to sleep by 7, and then sleeping right through till 10 a.m. That's a sign that your little one is definitely overtired. The overtiredness is probably causing the early waking in the first place. But because there is early waking, it's meaning that they're topping up on the sleep in the morning. So basically the night sleep, rather than having all the night sleep at nighttime, a bunch of it is missing and it's being taken early morning when it's actually daytime. So it's not really a nap. Does that make sense? So should you wake her up? You kind of need to position the sleep as night sleep and naps. And you don't really, did we have an age on this one? No, I haven't got an age. It's not likely the nap's going to be needed before 9 a.m. anyway. So if you can keep your little one going in the morning until 9, really at the earliest, 8:30 really at the earliest, but ideally about 9, and then take a nap then, that could be okay. Again, I am sort of talking about a child that's napping 2 or 3 times a day. If your child is older and only napping once a day, that's still going to be very early for a nap. But your child is definitely overtired if that's what's happening. Having that monster catch up till 10 a.m. is what he or she is doing to cope with that overtiredness. Great that they're having a catch up, but that's probably displaced and it's throwing your whole day off, because then waking at 10 is going to then throw whatever sleep's needed in the rest of the day, which could then leave continued overtiredness, which will then lead to more early rising. So it's like a vicious cycle. So yeah, I would try and push after the waking, first of all, I'd try and hold that child to nighttime until 6 a.m. So even if they're awake at 4 or 5, I would work on soothing back to sleep, even if that's staying with him or her, doing whatever you can to try and encourage a resettle. If it's after 6 a.m, that's fine. I would start the day and then I would try and keep that one going until a suitable time for a nap. And then I would make that sleep and nap and try and get that sleep taken at suitable times for naps, be that whether your child is on a 3 nap, 2 nap or 1 nap schedule. If this is an older one who doesn't even need a nap anymore, then I would suggest a nap is taken, and maybe just, you know, one nap bang in the middle of the day. I would also, another strategy you could use is early to bed, because this little one is without a doubt overtired. Now, when you have a child that wakes very early, it can be very tempting to put them to bed even later in hope that that shifts and that you move the whole thing later. And that doesn't work. It's not why your child's waking early. It's not because they've had enough sleep. So I would bring bedtime forward, make it earlier, and then that in itself might help stretch those morning wake ups out a bit, because a better rested child will sleep better and be less likely to early rise. So hopefully that answers that question on early rising with a little one who's catching up somewhere but not the best place. So yeah, overtiredness is more than likely the reason for that. Okay, what else have we got? Try and squeeze a few more in, but we're fast approaching midday. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, no, I think we've covered most of it actually. Let me just check. Oh, I think the little one with the self-soothing, there was a 7-month-old. So if you are still on the line, that question to the lady about how can I get my son to self-soothe without nursing or letting him cry, he was 7 months old, that one. So yeah, then everything I said about he's definitely old enough. He doesn't need to be nursed to sleep. So absolutely go for it. Just stop nursing to sleep, keep him awake, do everything you can to keep him awake, especially at bedtime, and find what soothing works for him, whether that's a little bit of a shush, maybe it's a bit of intermittent touch whilst he settles. But let me warn you, at first, no amount of soothing that you offer is going to cut it for him, because he's going to want to be nursed to sleep. It will, like you said, is crying or nursing to sleep is your only options. It will be that at the beginning. He will cry unless he's nursed, because that's all he knows. So it will at the beginning be very tough. And no matter what you do, even if you offered him a big cuddly, stroking, every bit of soothing you could offer, look, being here, shushing him, soothing him, touching him, whatever you do, he might even push you away and get annoyed, because in his mind he's going to go, no, I don't want any of that, that's not what I'm after, you know what I want. And he's going to probably be pretty strong-willed and cry to communicate that that's not what I want to be fed to sleep. And that's one of those, as I call it, the pain barrier. That's something you've got to push through and persevere through, so that he realizes, oh, actually, this soothing is quite nice, and I can get to sleep without being nursed to sleep, because I've been nursed and I'm not hungry, and yeah, I can get to sleep. So your job is to soothe, comfort, reassure, even when he doesn't seem to want it. Keep going, push through, you'll get there. So I hope that answers everybody. We don't have any more questions, and we are just about at the top of the hour. So I hope that's proved helpful to all of you. We will be doing these live Q&A sessions pretty regularly, so do keep an eye out for them. And as always, you can reach me on social media. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. You can email me and visit the website, which is sleepnanny.co.uk, and you can see all about what we offer, how you can get in touch, because sometimes just having a chat really does help. And I do offer a free 15-minute consultation over the phone, so if you think actually this has been helpful, I just want a bit more of a conversation, then book in for a free 15-minute conversation with me, and we can see if we can address things further, and see if there's any more help I can give you. So yeah, I do hope that's been super helpful, and look forward to catching up with you all again sometime in the new year. Have a wonderful Christmas, and I hope you get lots of rest. Take care. Bye.